So welcome everybody. Welcome to our annual business meeting, business section meeting. This is virtual, this is slightly different, and we hope to keep it relatively short. I will start us off with our welcome and also our introductions here. So first of all, I wanted to congratulate our new elected leadership. That includes Juliane Tremmel, who's going to be the chair-elect, and Luis Moises Pena-Levano, who is our incoming treasurer secretary. And with that, I also wanted to thank our outgoing leadership, and that includes Mallory, who served as a chair, as well as Michael, who served as our treasurer secretary. And then I, of course, want to welcome all of you here on our section meeting and for our discussion. And with that, I want to move to our point on the agenda that is really with regard to our last year's meeting. And I will ask Michael to lead that part of the agenda. That's really just approving our minutes. And the minutes went out in the original email if you didn't have a chance to look at them. Michael?
Yeah, so like Christine said, you should have the minutes from the last year meeting on your email. Do you have any suggestions? Is there something missing or any typos? Did you see anything? If not, we can move forward and approve the meetings, the minutes.
They certainly looked great to me, so I'm happy to put forward a motion to approve the meetings, and we would need one person to second it, I believe.
I'll gladly second that. Or
okay, a couple of seconds. And then I guess we have to do a voting or approval. I guess we could all raise our hand if you want to use your raise hand feature at your participant screen or the bottom of your screen. And let's see if we can get that worked out. Okay, I see quite a few hands raised. So again, if you want to approve the meetings, please raise your hand either in your participant screen or at the bottom of your screen. We need a majority. I guess we do have a majority. We don't have everybody having their raised hand. So the minutes from our last year's meeting are approved. With that, I will move to Luis, who is our new treasurer secretary, with a little bit of a update on our budget, with one caveat that everything is different this year. So usually we get a budget update from the AEA leadership. That hasn't happened this year yet. So we just have a little bit of an update of kind of where we think we are. And then later this year, we will follow up and send the official update on that as well. Luis.
Sorry, I was in mute. Nice to, actually good morning over there and good afternoon for the Eastern section of US. In terms of the updates, if I'm not wrong, we just received a couple of days ago the budget actually that was already accepted. But I do not know what specifically would you like me to update in this particular case, Christine?
Just if you can just provide us with a general overview, kind of where we are with our budget, and then we can send an update if there needs to be anything updated to the members.
Sure. Actually, currently they mentioned that they will give us the final version of the budget at the end of the month. So technically, it should arrive between today or tomorrow. And then once that is done, I will ask for a meeting in order to look at it carefully. So far they mentioned that it is coming, but it's not still complete.
Mm-hmm. So in general, we should be in good shape, I suppose, because we don't have any refreshments we are offering today, so no additional costs there. I don't know if in the information that they send you, Luis, there's also already an idea of what our membership looks like. I hope that's relatively stable as well.
Yes, it's so far stable, but they told me that the final versions they will send me in a couple of weeks because we have still the transition, and some of the sections still will have their meetings in the next weeks, and they want to have all of them together, and especially because so far the AAA meeting has not been official, and people are still registering. They also are contemplating that detail.
Mm-hmm. Marie, do you have your hand raised? Do you have a question for the budget?
Sorry, that was stuck from before. I had like baby issues.
I thought I lowered them all. Good, great, thank you.
Thank you.
I might chime in. I pulled up the budget template that was submitted for 2020, and we had anticipated $1,000 in dues revenue. We have about roughly year in and year out 200 and let me see, about 240 to 250 members. However, a lot of those are graduate student members that don't pay section dues. So we typically generate dues from approximately 100 dues paying members. And of course, for 2020, we'll have very little in the way of expenses. We had budgeted a few dollars for awards. We will go ahead and have those plaques created at the appropriate time for a couple of different awards presentations that will be mentioned later. And we had budgeted $600 for catering for this business meeting had we had a physical meeting, which of course we're not going to have. So our budget actually ought to look in better shape than it has for years because we have no expenses. I would encourage the group to continue to think of ways to encourage membership, encourage colleagues to sign up for this section as part of their section selection. And we offer a lot, and we've shown that this spring with our online teaching resources and all of those kinds of things. We have a lot to offer association members who are engaged in teaching. So I guess that would be my only thought.
Thank you very much, Rodney. Very helpful and a perfect lead into our next agenda item, which talks about our upcoming track sessions. And that gets us back to some of the things we have to offer, and then also an update later on the learning and teaching resource that you just mentioned here. So let's move ahead with our next agenda item, and that talks about our upcoming track sessions. I had put together a little flyer that listed the track sessions that we are holding remotely. The track session that is joined with the environment section is the first section that's coming up, and that's coming up in a little less than a week from now on Wednesday. Then we have a session that we had actually combined two of our previously submitted session, and that includes the teaching tips from our AEA award winners, as well as a panel discussion. This is where we roped in our original session on kind of lessons already learned from some of the instructors that already taught during fall and summer here. And then in the following weeks, we have a joint session with the experimental section that talks about impact of stress and emotion on decision making, but also academic success. And then we have the last session that will finish us up for this year on evaluating teaching. So that's the one that Sarah and that we talked a little bit in our unofficial chatting For the second one, which is probably one that in terms of general teaching tips, and for those of you that are either pretty much ready for fall or still struggling with getting everything together, I put a little flyer that put together a little flyer that I will also send out after our meeting today. So that happens next Thursday. And that is more of a general application specifically targeted at our new learning environment with our award winners starting us off, and then with some of the additional panelists from our other session that was submitted that have confirmed and already have experience. Some good, some know which things worked really well and which didn't potentially work as well, that they are happy to share with you. Staying with the theme, I want to next hand it over to Jason. Jason is the editor of ATER, and he is also with Rodney and me serving on the new task force that was created by AEA to really help, as Rodney said earlier, our members, all of our members, to transition into this new environment. And he will give us update on the web portal that we put together, as well as a new call for papers for the AETR. Jason, are you there?
Yeah.
Over?
So thank you for having me and welcome. In terms of those two lessons, just quick updates. So the AAEA, the online teaching and remote learning portal, is up. We are still looking for material to put up. We're constantly putting up as we can. So if you have exercises, online homeworks, videos that you think other people could use and would be useful, highly recommend you submit those. We try to upload them in 48 hours. And in addition, we're tracking downloads for people. So I'm hoping sometime in December to send out, prior to evaluations, send out downloads and stuff. So when people assess that, we do track who's downloading, what it's being used for, potentially number of students being that will see it. And so that'll give an idea. And so we've been tracking that. And we're still looking for submissions. I think there's some really good submissions on there, but we were hoping for a lot more than I think we've gotten so far. And traffic is picking up on it. So we're getting a lot more hits to this site than we previously had as well. So please pass the word on this site and people's willingness to encourage people that you know who develop stuff to submit it here so other people can benefit, and we can, so everyone doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, I guess, for exercises and stuff. Especially, I believe we all had to do a quick prep in spring, and most people are re-prepping their classes for this fall as well.
Jason, if I can jump in here, we had a clarifying question from Margaret, just asking if we are only looking for original content, but also potentially videos that we have used. And I believe the answer is both, like it's material you have created as well as things that you have resourced.
We've linked other websites, articles that are useful on the website, so that other people pointed us to. So yeah. In terms of AETR, we got delayed a little bit in terms of issue 3 will be coming out probably in the beginning of August. I know I rely on the AAEA staff to get that turned around in terms of editing and helping with design of the covers and stuff. So I rely on them, and I know they've been swamped with, they have primarily 2 people doing a lot of the backbone of the IT for the virtual meetings and all that support. So keep a lookout. All the articles that will be in issue 3 are in advanced access already. In addition, just kind of and I hope to send out another call here at the beginning, or another announcement here at the beginning of August. We do have the COVID-19 special issue that we're hoping to get submissions on. And so please look online at the AETR website. The call is there. We're looking for submissions by September 1st. And so please feel free to, and please, we're encouraging submissions on that. I'm hoping with those submissions, we already have 2 articles for the special issue. I'm hoping that we get a good round. If people are especially innovative, they're willing to write a commentary, which is a short paper about what they did. Everything is peer reviewed. And I'm hoping to turn around that special issue quickly and get those articles online so people can reference them. And we are also connecting all those articles into the AETR, or sorry, the AAEA, this online learning and teaching resources page.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it for AETR. In addition, I'm always accepting regular articles. Please keep submitting so we can keep that journal alive. And so I think we've been doing really well this year, and so.
Thank you. I put the site that you find on the AEA website if you haven't visited yet. And then you can also raise your hand here in the participant panel if you have an additional question for Jason. We already got one in the chat. Michael is asking how the number of the submissions for the journal is going during this time. It sounds like you already have 2 for the special issue.
So we've gotten some issues. They're coming in. I think we have more than we did our year 1. So we're already past where we were year 1 this time last year. I'm hoping for more. It's been kind of slow this summer. So that's kind of, we were great. Actually, we got quite a little slew of submissions right at the end of the semester in spring. And so we've been a little slow in the summer. And yes, so Julianne Trem was asking, have there been a lot of views of the articles? And I would say more recently, especially on the more recent issues, our views have substantially increased on articles. So we have some articles that are approaching several hundred views. So that in terms of that. So it's funny, issue by issue, each issue has on average progressively gotten more views than the prior issue. So, and we have a couple issues where we've had several hundred to 500-600 hits per article. So we're getting more in terms of that. So, and remember, if you're doing case studies or teaching methods and have teaching notes and supplemental documents with those, you can request those to be confidential. That allows us then to have people request them, and we keep track of actually who requests. So that information then becomes available for the authors. Kind of an additional perk for tracking for promotion and tenure.
Jason, we have Misty having her hand raised. Misty, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, I was wondering, I'm doing a submission for the special environmental TLC track session that we're doing next Wednesday, the journal article submission as well. But I was wondering if it would be useful or too repetitive to also have that assignment sent to you to use in this context in addition to being the article in AETR. So what I'm going to discuss a way I'm addressing climate change in my environmental economics class and how I'm going about that for the special track session, which is also being submitted to AETR for the special set. I don't know what it's called, but basically like the special group of articles. But then do you also want it in this format here where people can access it and use it in their classes? The access materials.
We will have, we post the articles. So the article links that are relevant for the online learning and teaching, I've been trying to get those, we link directly to the journal articles. So,
okay.
So I've tried to provide direct links for those articles that make sense. As we publish.
Yeah, I'm just asking if it's different. So it looks like this system here on this, the teaching resources, online teaching materials by subject matter, that's separate though from the articles in AETR, right?
Yes.
But can there be overlap?
Are you asking, can you?
Yeah, on the same topic, basically.
Yes, as long as, I would say if it's your AETR article,
Mm-hmm.
wait till that gets published.
Okay.
No, well, because I worry a little bit about, but if it's the materials and stuff, I'm not too concerned.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I kind of oversee both, so, which is nice in that respect. So in terms of your article, the article will be posted there if it's relevant and online and stuff. So we'll post that material too.
Okay, so you don't need to do both. That's basically kind of what I was
The
asking. Okay,
articles
good.
are automatically, I automatically consider those. And that's
Awesome.
just a direct link.
Okay,
We track all
okay.
that through the journal. Yeah.
So kind of like the first one here I saw in the general topic, or no, it was in the introductory one. There's a link and that's to the article.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. All right, thank you so much.
Mariah, you also have your hand up. Go ahead.
So I don't know if we want to spend a little bit more time on the AATR, but it's more of a general type of question I have to Jason, most likely. So if you want to move ahead with the agenda, I can wait until the end if that helps, or I can go ahead now. It's up to you, Kristen.
If it's related to the AETR, why don't we address it now? We're going to move into new business anyhow, so I think fine if you ask it now.
Because the reason I wanted to bring this up is that TLC has been really supportive of the AETR, and the majority of us, we've done our best to publish something. But I'm pretty sure that we're now, Jason's second year of this publication outlet. I don't know what is expected from AEA, whether we need to push more the journal outlets to other colleagues. Like I know we have embraced it and we try to attract people, but it's also like if you see the special issues, we see the same people kind of like trying to submit articles, and in some cases I don't know if that's going to be harmful to the journal. I just want to be upfront. I don't know if that makes sense, so that has been a concern. But if we want to continue having that outlet, and I think we need to be a little bit more diverse. And I know as an editor you have to deal with submissions, you need to have an issue out, you need to check the quality. And in all honesty, sometimes when you have sent me stuff to review, I can see that it's not so much of a relevance. So we have some flukes as a journal, as every journal. So if you have any suggestions, guidelines, things that you would like from us to do to support this journal, just let us know. That's all I'm saying.
No, and it's a good question in terms of, I mean, when the pandemic hit, my focus turned to the AAEA task force because I was approached with that in terms of heading that up. I was asked to head that up, and then putting out the special issue, also with the transition. I think in terms of, and that's on my radar in terms of asking others in the profession to write articles and people have expressed interest. The problem is getting people to write those articles. They're not at the top of their list always. So sometimes it's having to re-remind them and keep it on their radar. So that's the goal. I mean, and for me, it's if you know people who are, and I do this as I go through, because I scour the TLC, like I'll go through all the AAEA and other conferences and try to look for, and I invite submissions. And so for me, that is one way to broaden. And we are getting more submissions from people outside TLC. I think we're seeing that as it grows. But it's a slow process to a degree. Of what I talk with other people who start journals, it is a slow process in that. But one of the big things is just keep pushing it with colleagues who may not be part of TLC, I think, in that. What was your one question for you is, what did you mean by fluke? You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So what I'm saying is, like, sometimes people will see a new journal popping up and they will send whatever they had ready. And it's, I know we are gatekeepers, and but sometimes it's kind of like interesting to see your perspectives. Like, one, I think that I reviewed was, this is not exactly like, it was a mixture of research with with ways, with experiments. It was kind of like all over the place. And on the other side, it was a kind of like a wake up call to me. It's like, no, this is not a TLC publication, so you don't expect people to think in the same way that you think. And that made it interesting. But on the other side, it was kind of like, I'm sorry, Jason, I leave it up to you. Those are my comments. It's up to you as the editor to see whether you can proceed with the publication or not.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's what I mean, like, fluke in quotations. Like, I didn't know whether it's more of a personal type of thing.
No, and that's I would say we've had good submissions overall, but we get those that are, there are times where I'm questioning a submission, but at the same time I give the chance to redo. But we do have about a 20% rejection rate at this point.
Oh.
So we do reject. And I figure that will grow as we grow in stature and submissions as well. I want to say, Na had a question. For the share online teaching materials on the AAU website, comments on the proprietorship material like lecture videos, especially those recorded with university licensed software. So all the stuff that is put up is marked. So when you submit something, it asks what kind of Creative Commons license it would be under. And so that's if you're submitting something that's not directly yours or falls under something with the university, then that should be, make sure you follow that one. We had several options there for that. And getting AETR index somewhere. That is in the future. That is something that's on my mind. That was from Andrew. So we're hoping to do that here in the near future. And then Michael Vasilos asked, would it make sense to advertise the journal with NACTA members? Yes. I've tried, to be honest. We've tried to do stuff to get involved more with NACTA. It's been like pulling teeth. And it's not that I don't think they're willing. It's been like, we have gotten no responsiveness. I have tried to be involved and present and have like a booth and stuff at their conference, and it was pulling teeth to even try to get information about that. So that's kind of, no, it's a good thing and something I'm hoping to pursue, but yeah. And so when we first started the journal, we approached NACTA and did that. They were one of the institutions, and we even had a hard time getting stuff posted on their website for like our calls for special issues and for the journal.
Thank you, Jason.
So, yeah. So yeah. So thank you, Jennifer, and definitely. And that's something I just ran into that for a year and a half, and something we need to push. So if people have suggestions on promoting the journal or ideas, please email me and let me know. I'm always open. So
my sense is that as we are growing, some of it is growing pains. I actually think our learning and teaching resource has already helped, and in some ways the pandemic, maybe that's a silver lining, has helped a little bit as people are turning to that resource and makes it a little bit more accessible. And then Misty, that is a good example, as we have increased the sessions that we are submitting to the meetings, and we have some of those joint sessions, like there will be this special issue on teaching environmental economics, and so we will definitely try to do this going forward, and I think that will increase the submissions, but also the outreach to potential members that might have not found their way into TLC, and hopefully, and maybe also help us grow TLC as more people are coming in and are focusing on teaching. So I think that will work. Juliana is saying maybe we can tweet or share some of the articles more on social media, so that those are a good thoughts as well. So this might be something that can move us into discussion of new business, because that is potentially something maybe we can think of having a social media presence for EETR and or TLC. I know AEA has their own social media, but I think you all got, I got an email, I think it was just last week, asking about TLC members in the news, or asking about submitting TLC members in the news when AEA sends out that update. So that is something that we can discuss under new business. I do want to start us off with kind of one item that is a follow-up from our last year's meeting, as we are moving into discussing our new business. And that was last year in the meeting, we had discussed potentially coming up with a new TLC award that would be a TLC Curriculum Innovation Accreditation Award. And we set up a committee, kind of a little task force to think about this more and bring this forward in this meeting. That committee essentially got stalled, because right at the time where we would have been busy starting to work on that, this is where the pandemic hit. So my first proposal would be that we move that discussion of the award and that committee forward into this new year. And I can reach out to the people that volunteered on the committee last year to make sure that they're still willing to serve. And then also if anybody wants to join in this little task force and committee, thinking about whether we want to create a new award and how that would look like, you can also right now in the chat let me know, and I can add you to that, or you can email me later. So that will be in our new minutes. So that's my first proposal. So I guess we would need a motion to extend that committee and a second, and then we can try to move forward with that in terms of our first new business, before we talk a little bit more about track sessions and everything else that comes up in terms of our new year.
Kristen, I'll make a motion to extend the committee effort.
Thank you, Jennifer. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, great. So we will try the same thing with the raising the hand again and see if we have enough votes. Then I will try to lower all of those hands afterwards, so we know that these are not questions. Thank you. This is a great meeting. It's going really smoothly so far. All right, I'm seeing a couple of hands come in. I will give it a few more minutes here again. And again, I have the names on the minutes from last year. I will reach out to the people that are already in the committee. I already see Misty. Misty, I will add your name to the committee as well. And if anybody else wants to be part of that, please let me know just here in the chat, and we will include that in the minutes. And then if you're not seeing your name, of course, you can correct that in the minutes as well. All right, I think we have enough hands raised to basically go ahead. I'm lowering the hands here as we speak, but to go ahead and extend that. And so with that, I would hand it over and have Juliane lead us to a little bit of a discussion of ideas for track sessions for our upcoming meeting. Maybe just a brief little update as I was organizing the meetings for this year. The indication that I've gotten from AEA, partly because we had one session that we ended up not holding remotely. And so the indication is that most likely our session allocation is going to look very similar to our session allocation this year. We ended up having an increase in allocation from the previous year, from 1 to 3 allocations. And then the way we handled it is we ended up submitting a total of 6 sessions because all of them were jointly sponsored, which increased our sessions from 3 to 6. So most likely that's the kind of frame that we are working in. And one of the sessions we did not hold remotely, we can resubmit. And although we have to resubmit, the indication is that the chance of the sessions that were submitted this year but not held virtually have really good chance of being accepted. I can't guarantee, but they said a very high likelihood of being accepted. Juliana, you want to take it from here and discuss some of the new ideas potentially, if anybody has some?
Sure. Just to get a little bit more specific, the one that we didn't have was that professional development for the undergraduate and graduate agribusiness students. So what skills are needed and how to teach them. So fingers crossed this goes forward, because I think that's a pretty critical one. And I think a lot of people, have something important to say about that one. So fingers crossed that we can get that one back in. So I personally am very excited about the environmental session this year. As somebody talked about the climate change and how to talk about that in your class. So I'm very excited to see that, and hopefully that is again available next year as well. But did anyone have kind of like a specific idea that's a little different than what we've done that you think would be effective? Any kind of suggestion that someone wanted to kind of put forward?
I see, Rodney, you have your hand raised. Do you want to, or is that still from the?
That was actually still from the vote, but I will put my little 2 cents in worth that we have historically jointly sponsored the teaching tips session with the graduate student section. So I assume that will probably take a half of a slot. And other than that, I think we just have a lot of opportunity for some great ideas for either individual sessions that we would want to do entirely on our own, or opportunities to jointly sponsor sessions with a lot of different other sections.
Yeah, if I may just add the session that Juliana mentioned previously in terms of professional skills needed, that's definitely a session that we decided in this current climate made sense to move to next year, as everything is changing and also the skills needed are adopting. So that one definitely, with all of the people that were involved in that session, they're all willing to move that to next year, and we have some of the people here as well attending. And then I think there is, of course, big opportunity to continue the discussion of the transition to remote. And by that time, hopefully, we are back in person, but it's very likely that there is going to be both in person as well as online innovations, kind of as we are doing kind of a quick little lesson learned. I think we can definitely have a session that reflects on some of the innovations throughout the year that either puts classes completely online or talks about making resources available online once we get back into the in-person teaching environment. So I think there's some opportunity.
Is anyone at a school where they have talked about making the online class permanent, whereas previously it wasn't, but now they're kind of like, okay, we're going to keep this? Because that's what's happened at our school. So I had to do this COVID-19 transition, but apparently it's going to be permanent for a course or two. So I didn't know if anybody else, if that was just at NC State or if that was somewhere else as well.
I see 2 hands up, Mariah and James. Let's start with Mariah and then go to James after.
Just to clarify, is it more that there is an initiative from the college that you are to offer an online degree or a major, and that's why you were here, you were in that position, or it's more of a clarification because in Louisiana, the College of Ag is trying to offer a major to compete with other universities. So at the beginning, there was an initiative to support moving your class online, but with the COVID, everybody had to take steps towards that direction. And now they're still thinking of trying to keep some of the classes online?
That's
You can clarify.
So for our institution, we were only a few classes short of being able to complete the entire major online, which our dean was very pushing us to do. Unfortunately, I was one of the last ones. It's hard to develop an online course, and I did one, and now I'm supposed to do like 2 more. All that, I can't do it instantly. And so this has kind of been like, all right, now that you've got it, it's ready to go. But a COVID-19 course is not the same as a standalone online course. And I feel like a lot of people, not here, obviously, a lot of people don't kind of understand that. Like what I had to throw together is not the same thing as what I would want to put out semester after semester. So, I mean, I have videos, but they're not necessarily things that I want to put in my permanent vault. This is the best I could do with 3 children in our house, but like I need to like go back and redo that. But I think in general, in spite of all of the reports where students don't like online learning, some students really like it. And there has been a call like from students saying, I want more online options in this particular major. And that's been part of it as well.
For us, the college mentioned that more of the senior students will prepare the online because they're closer to graduation. Their schedules are a little bit more flexible than the incoming students, and that was a main push. But I totally agree with you that it's not the same thing preparing an online class. I tried to do it in the summer and I failed miserably on that. And if I can add a little bit to the discussion, Louisiana has a lawsuit for ADA compliance. So everything that we create for an online platform, it needs to go through that. It needs to check that box as well. And that makes it a little bit more problematic because we're using equations, wonderful graphs, as everybody knows. So I don't know. So if you have suggestions, please feel free to share. That will be amazing.
That's a wonderful comment. And again, we will have one of the sessions that will talk about all of the lessons learned. And definitely that is something that could come up in the sessions for next year. What's the difference between short-term online and kind of long-term online? I want to make sure James gets a chance to ask a question or share a comment because he has had his hand up for a while as well.
I guess I'd like to see us also maybe take on a devil's advocate role. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for converting to online education, and I think that and we only talk about benefits, and I think there's some significant costs that are often ignored or selectively diminished. I think there is something to be said that there are different student pools, student populations. Some do prefer having the online option, but I think they represent a particular niche within our student populations. And I think the majority of our students, whether they be freshmen or seniors, vastly prefer in-class live experiences for their college education. And so I think, I don't want to call it pushback, but I do think that we need to have a more balanced assessment of not only some of the benefits of online education, which everybody wants to talk about, but what's being lost. What's the explicit and implicit costs and changes with this different modality. And I think that's something that maybe the TLC should use as a track session theme is, what's the full picture of online education relative to a traditional modality of live classroom presentation. I mean, I teach in both. I've done online education. I'm preparing online classes now. Oregon State has they dove in deep 15 years ago in online education, 20 years. We were extremely well positioned for the transition to immediate, because I'd say the majority of our faculty had already prepared at least one full online course. And Julianne, you're right. There's a big difference between throwing something together over a 48-hour period versus, actually preparing comprehensively an e-campus course, an online course that you're going to see delivered term after academic term after academic term. But I think that I've just seen way too much commentary and traffic saying, oh, golly gee, this has been a transformative change, and university is never going to be the same. And I think that's an absurd statement. I think the vast majority of the students benefit from having a live classroom experience. They prefer it. I think all other things being equal, I think the learning environment on average is better in a live environment. Not to say that you can't have phenomenal learning in online environments, but I don't think that represents the full distribution of online experiences. I think that's cherry picking. And I think I've been on my soapbox long enough, but I do think that conversation's not happening. Capturing what's being lost, not what's being gained. It's a very one-sided conversation right now.
Very good point. And the aspect of which groups of students are affected in which way is a really important one. And some of us are trying to assess some of that and do some research on that. So that's definitely, again, a session that we could have and potentially co-sponsor with some of the other sections. That is a really valid point that I think is on all of our minds as we are making the transition. We also have some updates in the chat. Here they include Jason updating us that the new issue just went live as we are in the meeting for AETR. We also have a question about assessing learning in a permanent online environment. So that could be a track session as well, again, as this idea on focusing on diversity. I have Na and Misty's hands up here as well. So let's start with Na and then move to Misty.
So for the track session ideas, recently I've been thinking a lot is the inclusive teaching environment. I think both for in-person or traditional in-class teaching, as well as the online environment that we are facing now. I'm just, I guess it's both the social movement and I guess lack of the history of this country make me think more how I can really create the teaching environment that all my students equally feel empowered to learn. And the online environment definitely put actual hurdles for certain students. And even in the in-person class, there is unconscious bias when we call on students for questions. There's certain type of students are more likely to be called than the other type. So I guess for me, I see myself, there is this room for me really learn more. How do I create this inclusive teaching environment for my students? I would love to either participate or just learn from a section or this group to discuss a little bit more on that topic. That's my, thought.
That's a great idea. I mean, all of these, gosh, we could have like 10 sessions right now, and I think everybody would want to go. I mean, I think in some ways, this, kind of the virus, everybody is more interested in teaching, right? Generally, even those that don't spend that much time preparing, suddenly like that move to online really kind of had them start questioning, why am I doing this? How do I do this? So I think we've kind of got people as interested as maybe they've been in a while that aren't kind of like our typical, like, oh, this is what I really am focused on. So I'm hoping maybe like this next year, we can kind of continue to build on the momentum just of interest in teaching.
Yes, and we have, just to catch us up on the chat, we had adding there the cheating and academic honesty, both in the remote teaching, in these transitions, as well as permanent online, as well as face-to-face. So that might be yet again a session that we can address where we can have both what we learned in these kind of quick transitions to remote learning, more permanent transition to online, but also cheating as an issue in face-to-face classes, I believe.
Yes, and I was going to say something similar to that. I was going to say basically assessing student learning in both in-person and online and the challenges with cheating. Like, how can we assess learning in these two environments and know the integrity of our assessment exists, right? And that our students are actually learning something instead of copying and pasting from something else. So I think that's something that's important to know, like how do we assess student learning, and how does that change when you move online, and what kind of academic integrity issues are inherent in both class settings, and may call into question the validity of the assessments.
Thank you. Do we have, we already have so many great ideas. Do we have any other ideas in terms of track sessions and topics? And
Kristen,
general business ideas. Eduardo?
Real quick here, I think it was Sierra's point about communication. I would just add that there's been a call for training grad students for the industry jobs as well, as opposed to only academic. And I think all of us who are involved in teaching, we can leverage several of the techniques used for teaching and communication, and how to transfer those, how to adapt those to industry jobs. You know, for presentations, for industry training, this kind of skills I think would be nice for all of us who have invested in teaching within an academic, with the goal an academic job, and now have to switch to industry.
That is potentially something that could even be included in the session we didn't hold and deferred to next year. That is the professional skills needed, but could potentially also. I view that as potentially the revised version of that session that we had on the schedule this year. Maybe if you agree, Sarah and Eduardo, there's probably room there because it's academic as well as not necessarily academic jobs. That those communication skills are going to be important, both in these Zoom meetings as we are holding more of those, also in kind of communication.
Exactly, fits well in that section, it's true.
I think we have our work cut out for us.
I will just add on the communication. We've had, I don't know if you guys have had this, I would say probably 98% or 99% of our undergraduates go into the industry at a fairly high pay rate. So it's really hard to convince any of ours to go to graduate school around this area because the Twin Cities have so many large ag corporations. But the industry has sent out emails, and we've shared with our students, and they're literally talking to our students about how to navigate and how to communicate, because it's such a problem for this generation of students that I'm afraid if we just put them even more electronically involved and they're just doing all their online courses, that ability to look over at somebody in a room to talk, just to have the ability to have a conversation. I have a student of mine that's going to go to graduate school, and she's like, I have learned how to call people and talk to people, and I really never had that skill because I was never forced to have that skill, because I made her call the farmers that we were wanting to test this combine on this summer and really make those efforts. And so how do you facilitate that? And so to kind of go along with that, it's really looking at the techniques. If we do online kind of full degree programs as an undergraduate, how do you get those techniques, you know? And so that could be a nice track session. And then the same with the cheating. What techniques are being used that are still ADA compliant or ability services compliant?
Thank you, Sarah. I think, again, we have a lot of good ideas there, including the one that Na brought up. I know in our university setting that there's a lot of discussion about minorities, especially in economics. We as a discipline don't have a good track record there, and that could be combined with some of the topics of inclusion there in terms of what are we doing to make sure that we have a more equitable environment. I do want to be pay attention to the time. We are at time, so I kind of want to move into closing remarks and hand it over to Rodney. But we can leave the Zoom meeting open, and those of you that have a little bit of time in their schedule, we can have a continuous little bit more of an informal discussion here. I just want to make sure that we kind of stick to our agenda and officially finish our meeting close to our time frame. So
Kristen,
yeah.
I'd like to just make one announcement. So for those in the invited TLC environment, John Whitehead, he's putting together a book chapter about teaching articles and teaching in environmental resource economics, and he had put out a call on one of the listservs, basically looking for articles. And I told him we're going to have a few coming out in the next month or two or three, and so we certainly should make sure that any of the articles from our upcoming session make it over to his chapter.
Thank you, Jared. I also see James hand up again. As everybody that can stay on, I'm gonna table some of that to make sure that we get some of the closing remarks for the official part in, and then who has time to stay on can stay on. And James, if it's something that you want to make sure everybody has access to, maybe put it in the chat box for now. And let's finish the official part of the meeting, and then we can continue the discussion for those of you that still have time in their schedule. Rodney?
Really quickly here, I have really two items of business in terms of closing remarks. One of them probably would fall more in the category of potential new business, and I'll try to make it very, very, very quick. As you know, the TLC section sponsors a graduate student teaching award every year. And we put out a call for nomination packets along about January, and we make that selection of the winner in time that we can have that individual included in the teaching tips session, assuming we continue to do that in future years. One of the comments that I had this year as we put out that call for nominations was that the nomination packet that we have been using for the last several years is relatively strongly tailored to somebody probably finishing up a PhD, preparing to go into probably a land-grant university or other university teaching environment. So the nomination packet is very much geared toward teaching activities, actual classroom teaching experience, and those types of things. And our winners usually have some pretty strong teaching experience. One of the comments that I received in the application process was to at least bring up with this group, would we consider the possibility of splitting that award? One component of it, pretty much like it is now, geared toward excellence in actual classroom teaching experience, probably at the undergraduate level, but maybe some other type of a recognition for maybe a master's level type teaching assistant experience, which somebody who might have had an excellent experience or made an excellent contribution in, say, a graduate teaching assistant role probably would not have a very good chance at winning our teaching award, because we always have people who have actually excelled at actually managing a class or two or three, but rather maybe something more geared at the master's level to somebody who's just done an excellent job of being a teaching assistant. I'm not advocating one way or another. I just promised the person who brought the issue up in the application process this last winter that I would at least bring the topic up with this group to see if there would be any interest in perhaps making some kind of an additional call for maybe another tier, another level of that award, so that we could recognize maybe some of our excellent master's students in the profession for the contributions that they make. So I know we don't have a lot of time for discussion on that topic, but if anybody has any thoughts or comments about whether they think that would be appropriate or whether we want to kind of stick with what we're doing and you know, I think it would be worthy of a discussion among our group just because somebody brought it up. So that was my first comment, and if anybody has a really quick response, I would entertain that before I move on to my second item of business.
One thing we could do is again have potentially a committee that reviews our graduate teaching award and see if we want to expand that or change that to move that towards the next year, and it could be something we could bring up in next year's meeting then.
Okay, so let's duly note that in the minutes that we will try to maybe more formally address that. The second thing, and first I want to respond to James Stearns has a comment that we typically have a board member at our section business meeting. This year we were kind of informed that it just didn't fit anyone's schedule. Our board liaison couldn't make it. I feel pretty strongly that we want to continue that tradition going forward in the future, but James, it just didn't work out this year. So I don't think that was not an intentional omission on your section leadership's part or anything like that. We did have that discussion with our board liaison, and it just didn't work out for the time slot. So very sorry about that, James. It is an important part of our business meeting to have an update from AAEA. But the last thing that I want to mention is I do want to recognize, we always want to recognize our outgoing board members. So we have Michael and we have Mallory. Michael's on today. Mallory, I think she's just been pretty overwhelmed with duties trying to get things done. But I want to recognize both of those individuals, and we will, as has been tradition, we will get some plaques to recognize their service to this board, and we will get those to them at the appropriate time. And the other thing that we always do at our business meeting, at the annual meetings, is recognize our graduate student award winner. And I know Logan was on the meeting earlier. I don't know whether he still is or not, but Logan Britton from right here at Oklahoma State University has done a fabulous job of graduate student teaching, managed several classes, really well liked in the classroom. And we just want to recognize our graduate student teaching award winner Logan Britton, who's now accepted a job at my old alma mater, Kansas State University. So he'll be moving 150 miles north or so sometime this fall.
Thank you very much, Rodney, and congratulations to Logan at recognition there. We have, again, a couple more hands up. I want to close the official part of the meeting for those of you that need to run and go to other meetings. Jennifer made a good comment that some of the discussion of the teaching award can move into the committee and the discussion of the additional award. I like that idea. We don't have to set up another committee. We can rope that in there and maybe have that part of the discussion there. And with that, have a wonderful afternoon for those of you that have to run. And James and Michael, if you still want to add additional comments, we can do that now. So let's plan to have another 10 minutes or so for those of you that still have time to stay on before we close off the meeting. Thank you, everybody. And I will hopefully see everybody in the sessions moving forward in the coming weeks, as well as the actual AEA virtual meeting that is happening later in August as well.
Thank you.
Michael, do you still want to?
Oh, I mean, the only thing I wanted to say, just to add to what Rodney was saying about the graduate student award, that we had every year we get better and better applications and more, which is impressive. I think it shows how much students value TLC and the work that all the graduate students are doing.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael, are you saying that Na and I are bad now?
No.
Do we have any other comments, discussions that we want to move forward before we all go on to our rest of our busy days?
I did have one I wanted to mention that this kind of ties in with AET, the journal as well, and for potential track sessions. I think we should be trying to partner with some of the environmental econ, like traditional, smaller liberal arts type professors, and running some experiments and doing it on, where we have the comparison between an ag setting versus, say, in a traditional econ setting, and thinking about that in terms of bringing them in for a track session, but also so that way they can become familiar with AETR. It's a suitable and a well-suited journal for any of the teaching pedagogical type of experiments that are going on with any of the straight environmental econ and econ department type faculty.
Yes, great idea there, Jared. If you have any idea how we can more systematically reach out, a lot of the joint track session are very informal. You kind of come up with ideas. We usually look for the ideas that we come up, who is potentially a section that we could partner with, and at least in my experience, AEA has really been supportive and kind of promoted the idea of having jointly sponsored track sessions, and it can really help us there. But outreach, again, to professors in this particular case, environmental economics professors that might not even necessarily be part of the agricultural world, I think would be really helpful. And so any ideas that you have in terms of sharing ideas and reaching out, I think we really appreciate it if you want to take the lead there.
Kristen, I had a quick thought that I would just like to bring to the discussion before we break up and move forward. And that's about the committee that we formed, that we'll be putting some effort into this year, and as it relates to innovation and accreditation. And I think back to last year, who would ever think that we would have made such a leap forward in our definition of innovation, especially with the COVID situation and the structural shift to online learning and teaching. And so I think that, as we're all moving into that new paradigm, it's pretty clear the content that can fall into that innovation category for innovation awards. That's certainly not lacking any ideas or content that could be considered for that award. But my question is more along the lines of what we want to think about with this accreditation. And there have been, as you know, some other committees. We're a 72 coordinating committee has been working for the last year and a half on this accreditation idea and have broadened our perspective to critical skills that industry emphasizes in demand for our students in agribusiness, primarily at the undergraduate level. And our conversation has continued over the year more about these critical soft skills. And so we've somewhat shifted focus from the accreditation idea and just as a continuation of the conversation and being broadly inclusive. And so I would just ask you, as the new leader of our TLC group, about this idea more broadly for accreditation, and more broadly within the discipline of AAEA and where we're looking at moving. What is the real objective for this accreditation, and how is it supported broadly within the board of AAEA and the discipline at large? And would it maybe be something to consider as a partnership effort and a larger conversation, the idea of these critical skills that are now in demand, not only as agribusiness and the discipline of agricultural economics has evolved, whether it's a graduate track or an industry track, but also to address some of these concerns with higher order types of learning objectives and thinking of taxonomic learning objectives, critical thinking, written and oral communication, project management, some of these bigger in-demand skills, and how that plays into what we're trying to deliver from a higher education standpoint. And so I just want to be clear with the support from AAEA in terms of the accreditation lens and what we're operating in the space of teaching and learning as it relates to the skills in demand for agricultural economists, as it may relate to environmental economics, as it may relate to agribusiness, as it may relate to behavioral. What is the larger discipline of agricultural economics shifting towards and in support of as it relates to TLC? I just wanted to put that kind of long-winded answer as a question to you, that what is the broad support that we have from the discipline? And it might be timely to have that conversation as well.
That is a really good point, Jennifer, and this would be one of those points where it would be really helpful if we had our board liaison here, that we are not just having some of these discussions in just among us, but also roping it in, as you say, with the greater context of AEA.
Possible to ask for that meeting and to have a special meeting, not just as our annual business meeting, but to call for a special meeting.
Yes, so I was about to say that is something I think in this committee work, as we are putting forward a more structured idea, we could then reach out to the leadership. Potentially also, I see potentially a role there with this new task force that some of us are on. So we already have, to a certain extent, a way to communicate with the leadership, but we would have to make sure that what we are doing has the support and is in alignment. And I think as a discipline, we have to answer some of those questions, whether that is economics or ag econ, and really address some of the issues in terms of what, as you put it, what are the critical skills moving forward. So I think I wish I could give you straightforward answers. I do not have them. I appreciate you bringing it up. It's definitely on my mind as well, and it is something I think we have some work to do. So I think, again, thank you for bringing it up. And as we are moving on in this committee work, those are points that we have to make sure that are in alignment, and we are asking for support from the leadership there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. James, I still see your hand up. Do you want to?
Yes, yes, please. If I could, I mean, just to get to Jennifer's question, a little history, a historical perspective. Julie Caswell, in her presidential address to AAEA, which was probably 10 years ago, a major component of her speech or her presidential address was about the possibility of having accreditation within the agricultural economics profession across all sub-disciplines of ag econ. And I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago at AAEA, I asked Julie about that because we were starting to have these conversations within WIRA and within TLC. And she very deadpan comment saying, well, it went nowhere. You know, and that was from from her, bully pulpit of the presidency of the association. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of interest in accreditation at that time. Now that was, like I said, 10 years ago or so. I'm not quite sure what year she served as AAA president, but So it's not a new question. It's one that others have thought about well beyond TLC, and so it's still timely. It's still relevant, but there's probably other folks we can tap, can talk to and tap into other resources to build on other ideas that have been thrown out in earlier iterations.
And I mean, I can share just from the perspective of our department, and I know that's probably true across departments there, that we have some issues with accreditation in kind of our business major, in that that does rely on accreditation through other organizations. So there is a lot of bigger issues that rope into this topic that, as James rightfully said, I think have been tried to address in the past and haven't gone really far. So those are really important points.
Just see maybe a first step. Accreditation seems to be a lofty goal, but certainly identifying some of those dimensional differences within our subdisciplines, and where we may be offering general theory as it might be ubiquitous to all the subdisciplines, and where we are identifying some of these more critical skills that could be indicative of an accreditation process, but beginning to identify those differences between the different subdisciplines so that it's clear what to industry as a signal, what those subdisciplines can provide as value to an employer. And that's where I see the conversation happening, that it's more of a signal and identification of skill set or abilities that differentiates the general discipline, not that we're going to reach accreditation anytime in the near future. Anyway, that's my kind of soapbox.
Yeah, I think to finish that up, that is kind of putting it in the context of the award and that committee work. It's the two levels, right? Like we have our graduate teaching award, which is an award that stays within our section, and then also potentially some of the awards, and that's where I see accreditation come back in as a general topic that go beyond our section, that actually get the recognition in the general meeting, and including having the award handed out as the general award ceremony. So those are ways in which we can potentially tackle it, or we'll find out that it's going nowhere as some of the people in the past have. So thank you again. I think we are getting close to the time that everybody has. So I think we should probably leave us with that. But of course, please feel free to reach out via email, and I will do my best to inform all of our section members as we are going through this year without knowing what is yet to come. Again, I hope I see you in the coming weeks at all of the sessions that are still happening. And thank you all for being here and making it through our first virtual business meeting. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.